CN Wood Company. I'm a product support person. What I do is I do demos, I do training, I do some troubleshooting, all kinds of different things for the company, but most of the concentration is helping the sales force with the environmental products that we sell, the sweepers, trackless sidewalk plows, as well as the Vector sewer cleaners and Hydro X trucks. So today we're going to cover a little bit, mostly the slide presentation is pretty much on the Elgin Pelican, but obviously if you've got any other, we sell a whole host of different sweepers, so if you have a problem with a different model, just let me know and we'll see if we can help you out. CN Wood Company, just so you know, we've been in business since 1964, 62 years in the business, family owned. We've always been dedicated to the city and towns. Business started, selling snow plows, but we've also been selling Elgin sweepers since the start of our business, so we've been doing it a long time. As I said, 60 years, we got 9 locations, headquarters, Woburn, Mass. We have a dedicated service base and technicians that totally deal with the Elgin product line, the Vector product line, and the trackless product line. So we don't intermix the construction side of our business. We have people that are just dedicated to keep your equipment up and running. We got 3 service trucks running around up here in Massachusetts. And we also have a host of product support people. So if you guys don't have, you should have a product support rep that's stopping in at your location periodically. They're a good resource because they can help you with any of your parts issues, but it's also you can bring up some service issues that you got going on or maintenance type issues, and they should be able to get you answers or put you in touch with me, and we can help you out and keep your product running the way it should. Just so you know, Elgin Manufacturing, all the products are manufactured in Elgin, Illinois. Elgin is owned by a company called Federal Signal. Federal Signal owns a lot of different companies. A lot of the companies that you're doing business with, whether it's sweepers, vac trucks, the trackless are the 3 main products that we deal with. But they also make dump bodies and a lot of other municipal type systems that they own those companies as well. Federal Signal's been in business like 125 years, I think it is. And Elgin themselves has been in business 110 years. So between 110 years of Elgin, all the years, 62 years of CN Wood, we're not going anywhere. We've been in the business a long time and we're here to support you. Not only do we offer the Pelican sweeper, but we have a whole host of other types of sweepers, vacuum sweepers, regenerative sweepers, and truck-mounted mechanical sweepers. So the Pelican is what we call a mechanical sweeper, and we also make that in the Broom Bear and the Broom Badger in a truck-mounted chassis as well. Again, started 1914 was the first sweeper. And I'm going to go through these slides real quick, but you can see like the evolution of the Pelican. It's kind of looked like a 3-wheel Pelican for a lot of years, just different versions. Pretty cool to see some of the old sweepers, and imagine how, operating one of those back in the day. The way it is nowadays, you're in a nice air-conditioned cab that is, pressurized, it keeps you clean. It's a nice work environment. It never used to be that way for a lot of years, so you don't need a cab, right? Just sit out in the open sun. And of course, today we got the Pelican the way it is. It's a lot nicer than what it used to be. When we sell your machine, we supply you with all the books, so a lot of the information that I present and talk about is available right at your fingertips. I don't know where the books go when I give them to you, but they're got to be in the mechanic space somewhere. But they explain all the different features of the machine. They explain, the mechanical side of how to fix things, how to change out brooms, how to properly adjust things. So a lot of the information you have is right at your fingertips, but we're always here as a resource as well. There is training available. I mean, if you have mechanics that want to get trained by the factory, they have free training out in Elgin, Illinois, and usually if you wanted to do that, the cost to the city or town is generally what it costs you to get to Illinois and then a hotel room. So there are classes that you can attend if you'd like to. Safety-wise, I mean, safety is a big thing, right? I'm not going to spend a lot of time up here today on it, but I will tell you, all over the machine is all sorts of warning and safety decals. And as you can see, the different decals have different meanings. So usually your orange is like warnings, yellow caution, blue is like real, just kind of notice type thing. And somewhere along the line, you could get into like red. Red usually means like you're going to get extremely hurt or it's going to be death. So we want to avoid those things as much as possible. But if you're a new operator or haven't operated in a while, it is worthwhile to look through the safety portion of the operator's manual and become familiar with that. A lot of it's common sense. I mean, we don't want to stand on the hoppers without them being properly supported, especially at the end of the day when we're doing our cleaning and so forth. Good practice every day is to set up your machine properly before you go out and sweep. That means like mirror adjustments, that's part of it. I mean, you should have your mirrors nicely adjusted, so depending on whether you're running from the right side or the left side, you can look at your mirrors real quick and be able to see the things that you need. Be able to see around you. The front spot mirrors are going to cover in front of the machine, so if you have somebody walk like in front of you, like real close, if you got those properly adjusted, you should hopefully be able to see those people. We know the way it is out there, right? The people don't care. They're just in their own world. They're not paying attention to you, but you got to pay attention to them. Again, set up, make sure our backup cameras should be set up so we got, 3 feet back. We're going to have like a little dead zone here, but we should be able to see everything back behind it. And as you can see on the front mirrors, you should be able to see like right down to the front of the machine and then so many feet out. So walk around, like we usually do a walk around on the sweeper when I deliver them, but the big things is, get side brooms, we got our dirt shoes, main broom. All the components need to work together in order to do a good sweep job. So what I generally find out is that, when everything's new, all the components are together, the sweeper sweeps real well, but as it gets age on it, certain components get replaced and others don't, and then the sweeper starts to do a deteriorating job on its efficiency and so forth. So we'll talk about some of that stuff as we go through the slides. So the main idea is we're feeding material in with our side brooms. We're getting material out of the gutters, and we're trying to take the side brooms and put the material in front of the main broom. And at that point, the main broom is flicking the material up onto the conveyor and dumping it into the hopper. So that's the goal of what we're trying to do, and we're trying to keep all that material contained to the machine as much as possible. So as you can see, part of that is the side brooms have to be properly adjusted. So number one, they're not coming out too far. They're actually feeding the material into the rear broom path. Sometimes if those brooms are out too far, they'll feed material just to the left or just to the right of outside the broom path, and then you'll get trailing material behind you. So they have to be set in close enough to be able to feed that material into the middle. And we'll also talk further in, as we get further into the presentation, we'll talk about proper setup of angles and so forth. Again, safety supports, anytime you're working under the hopper, there's built-in safety supports. They should be used. I mean, you get in there every day to do washdowns. You don't want to be under that hopper when it's just up in the air, and the only thing that's holding it up is the hydraulics. Big thing is broom pressure adjustments. As when you got a brand new broom, your adjustment switches are going to be on the lighter settings, as you can see in this diagram. And as the brooms wear, you're going to be cranking more down pressure. Allow that broom to drop further to the ground and get all the wear you can out of the broom. The one thing you can do with down pressures, a lot of the operators don't realize, is that if you're going down the street and you see like a pothole on the right up against the curb and you want to dig into that a little bit, you can crank up your down pressure to your right-hand broom. Allow that to dip into that pothole a little bit. And then when you get out of it, go right back to your original setting and keep on going. Same thing with the main broom. If you come down the road and all of a sudden you look behind you and you just left your pile of dirt in the ground, probably the ground had like a dip in it. and that broom's going along, and it's not going to drop down. It doesn't automatically float with the ground. It's kind of held off the ground, or it's held onto the ground just a little bit. So if you see that ahead of you when you're coming down the road, if you crank up your down pressure, that'll allow that broom to dip in, take the material with you, and then you, again, can adjust back to your normal settings and go back to where you were. There's a lot of different icons on the screen. Best thing I can tell you there is to, I always recommend you should have the operator's manual in the cab of the machine. If you see a light come on that you don't recognize, open up the book, it'll tell you what it means. Usually a lot of the lights that are coming on are like regen lights, especially those of you that have the newer sweepers. They will regen from time to time, and those icons will tell you what level of regen you're at and what you need to do. Sometimes regen is you keep on running the machine, keep on sweeping, keep the RPMs up, and let it do its thing. Just keep on sweeping and do its thing. Most of the time it's automatic, but you do get, as the soot level rises in the DPF filter, at some point you're gonna have to do what they call a parked regen. And at that point you want to, find a safe place, make sure the sweeper is relatively clean, especially in the fall when we get leaves, right? Leaves will get up in the engine compartment, they'll get up any little hole they can find. And what we don't want to have happen is when we're doing the regen, that exhaust is getting, 1,500, 2,000 degrees. We don't want to catch fire, right? So that's when you want to be careful. But at some point you'll do a parked regen, and you find a safe place, make sure it's safe, and then tell it to do its regen and let it go through the process. What we don't want to do is we don't want to ignore doing the regen, because if you ignore it too many times, the machine will lock out on you, and it'll force you to, the problem is it'll force you to have to call the John Deere dealer to come out and plug in with their software and get the machine back up and running. And that is not, if it's a brand new machine, it's not a warrantable thing. They're gonna charge you to do it. So we want to avoid that. I will say, I go around to a lot of cities and towns, I don't think we have much problem with it anymore. Back 10, 15 years ago when all this technology was new, I don't think anybody understood it, but we're dealing with it in every vehicle we have, our plow trucks, our loaders, backhoes. They all have it. I think we all have a pretty good understanding of it now and how it works, so I'm not seeing any problems. So it's not like the old days. For those of you, it seems like a couple have got new sweepers. You probably have this new screen in there. That's a little bit more interactive. On the new sweepers, we don't necessarily need a laptop to plug in anymore. A lot of the diagnostic information and stuff is right at your fingertips. Makes it a lot nicer. It makes it a lot easier for the city and towns too to do their own repairs. Also on the new screen is a built-in diagnostic manual. So if you do have like an issue going on, you can go to that issue and you can do a troubleshooting tree of what you need to check. Serial numbers are real important. Anytime you're calling us for service or parts, please have the serial number with you. Yes, we do have serial numbers in our computer. Yes, we can look them up. But some of you have multiple sweepers, number one, or you've, over the years, have bought and traded sweepers. Well, the old sweepers sit on your account forever. So when our parts techs or anything are pulling up your account, they could see the old sweeper to the new sweeper, and it's kind of a guessing game. So please have serial numbers with you when you, anytime you call in, but they're in two places. They're stamped into the frame on the right rear of the machine. Open up the right door of the cab, they're in on the firewall right on the back there. So if you get that number, that would be a lot more helpful and make it easier for anybody that's looking at parts. If you're trying to figure out what tier machine you have, if you look at your serial number, anything that's like NP2 is the old tier 3. That's like basic EGR technology. We don't have DEF, we don't have regen, any of that stuff. We start getting into the regen a little bit with the NP3 serial number, which is interim tier 4. And then all the current sweepers, probably over the last 6 or 7 years, are what we call NP4. The serial number starts with 4. And That's all Tier 4 final engines. You know, broom adjustments, what are we looking for? So on the main broom, the way we can tell if our broom's properly adjusted is we can run a broom pattern, okay? What we're really trying to do is we want to flick the material. So if you think of it as a push broom, anytime you've taken a push broom and you jam the bristles into the ground and you push that pile forward, you move like the heavy part of the pile, but you leave a lot of dirt behind, right? But anytime you just take that push broom and you just flick the bristles on the ground, it looks pretty clean behind you, right? It's moving that material ahead. And that's what we want to do. We want to flick the material. If our main broom is turning and it's grinding those bristles into the pavement and then coming up, it's not really flicking the material. It's just kind of pushing it. It's bending the bristles. It's wearing the bristles the wrong way. So the way we test that is we do a broom test. You can do this. All your operators can do this before they go out and sweep. The side brooms are, when they're set up, we tilt them. So we tilt them from back to front. We tilt them 5 degrees. And then we tilt them into the curb line 5 degrees. That's how we typically set them up, is what we call a factory setting. So what we're looking to do is that broom's rotating. We don't want the bristles to be hitting 360 degrees on the ground. We want the back side of the broom is going to be up off the ground. So the broom comes around, it's off the ground. And right about the 3 o'clock for the right-hand broom, right over around the 3 o'clock mark, or 90 degrees to the machine, the broom will start hitting the ground, pick up that material. It's carrying the material around. And then right around the 11 o'clock mark, that broom starts to pick back up, and it throws the material into the center of the machine. So if you're not getting this type of pattern, you're not properly picking up the material out of the curb line, okay? The other part we want to look at is, typically it's going to be pointed on the ends. It'll be like a crescent-shaped moon, and we want to look at the widest point. The widest point wants to be about 3 or 4 inches. That tells me that we have the correct down pressure, we have the correct angle settings, and it's going to pick up material, and it's going to deposit material into the center of the main broom. We also want the broom to overlap the main broom coming in, okay? So that's real important as well. If this broom's set way out here, it's going to drop the material out here, and we're going to have trouble picking up the material. So we can run a static broom. We can turn all our brooms on out there in the parking lot on a flat surface and just let them run for like 15, 20 seconds at like 2,000 RPM. And then we'll pick the brooms up, we'll move the machine away, and we'll look at these patterns. And that can kind of give us an idea of whether we're set up right to go out sweeping. Part of, like you talked about broom coning, if we do this pattern check, we can see whether the broom's going to cone or not, because what we want to see is on the main broom, we want to see a wide path going all the way across the broom. And we want that path to be about 6 inches wide from one side to the other. And if we're getting like 3 or 4 inches on one side, 6 or 7 inches on the other side, that's telling me that broom's going to cone. So you can kind of run a pattern and see that. Now, once your broom started coning, you're done. You just need to run the broom and get everything you can out of it. You're not going to bring it back into shape, and you're not really going to be able to do a proper test. But you can do these tests before you go out. You can kind of see how things are set up. Make sure you get your proper down pressure. And then when you go out and sweep, 90% of your sweeping is going to be pretty good. These are initial setups. Sometimes you get out and your road, if your road is crowned a little bit hotter into the curb line, you might have to tweak those 5 degree adjustments and maybe go like 6, 7. You might have to play around with those depending on how your road is set up. You can see these marks that are left in the pavement. You can see this one, the broom was hitting 360. So that tells me that that's not really set up well. This one's probably a little bit hotter, but not terrible. It probably could use a little bit of tweaking. That one over there doesn't look too bad. And of course our main broom, that looks like it's pretty straight across, and it looks like it's about 6 inches wide. So that would be pretty good. That's a pretty good one right there. You can see that pretty well. Sometimes you do these tests in the pavement and you move the sweeper and you can barely see them. It's just, it's finding that right place and seeing how it works. And this is just more showing it, showing that half-shaped moon, main broom pattern. The brooms are overlapping, the main broom coming along. That's what you want to see. And again, like it says, increase the engine speed to 2,000 RPM. Basically, drop and load, rotate your brooms, do it for about 15 seconds, raise them up, move the sweeper away, and you can look at the patterns on the ground and make a determination if you're set up properly. We use an angle finder on the side brooms to check the degree of angle. Usually we do that with the broom down on the ground in its operating position. We can put an angle right on top of the rotating plate, and we can check our angles to see where we're at. Like I said, starting angle is like 5 degrees one way and 5 degrees the other. And we might tweak those a little bit harder depending on the crown of the road. To change those angles, this adjustment rod right here will change your front to rear angle adjustment. And then in behind the motor that turns your broom, you got a couple of nuts. That'll adjust your side tilt. You loosen those up, adjust your side tilt, tighten them back up. Some customers got an option on their machine where you can actually do the side tilt from inside the machine. There's an electric actuator motor out on the broom that we can change that tilt on the fly. So if you have that option, you can do that on the fly, and on your little LED screen on the inside, it'll tell you the degree of tilt that you're at. But if you're coming down the road and you can see the road's really crowning, you can tweak that and change it right on the go. I talked about this a little bit, and you'll see different versions of this. If we go out on the sweeper out in the parking lot, it's a little bit different. But these bottom rubbers, number one, they need to be in place. This front rubber, I see that torn out a lot. That's helping keep a material into the center, into the broom, so you're not getting streaking out the back of the machine. If on your dirt shoe here, if that bottom rubber is wearing uneven, it probably needs an adjustment on this spring. And on this one, we got different holes we can move it to, and that'll adjust the balance of the dirt shoe. So depending on whether it's wearing heavy on one side or the other will depend on where we move that spring. On the newer machines, it's got a couple of bolts you loosen up, and that spring's attached to a bracket, and we can just change the angle of that bracket to change the spring the way it's pulling on the dirt shoe. So adjustments can be made so that wears even. Basically, when that dirt shoe's up in the air, as long as it's clean and the dirt shoe moves freely, it should be parallel to the ground when it's up in the air. That's kind of a quick check that will tell me that that should wear even. Sweeping speeds, it depends, again, what year machine you have. Most of them are Tier 4 machines out there and around. So if we have light sweeping, we're not picking up a lot of heavy material, you don't really need to have that machine cranked up to the moon. You can be around 1,500 RPM, and you can top speed at about 5 to 7 miles an hour. But as the material gets heavier, we need to slow down the machine, and we need to increase the RPMs. So we don't always have to have this thing cranked, but if we get in heavier material, we need to crank it up a little bit more and really slow down the machine, let the machine grind through the material and do its job. Anytime you're transporting with the machine, I would put it at full throttle. If you got hills that you're dealing with, you're gonna need more throttle, but just keep it in mind, you don't need to always have that machine cranked up to the moon. The hopper hinge should be lubricated periodically. Make sure that that stays free and and is able to fold out from the machine pretty easy. Conveyor belt's real important, condition of that. We use a chevron type belt. You can see the belt has got like a curve to it. That helps carry material up and put it into the center of the hopper as much as possible. So we're getting a nice even fill in the hopper, and we're not overloaded to one side or the other. Plus, if we can keep that belt loaded to the middle, the belt's not going to track left or right and do damage as well. So the design of the belt is important. If the belt, I always tell operators every day they should be looking at the edge of the belt to the side plate, edge of the belt to the side plate. That belt should be somewhere in the middle. So if you've got even distance from the edges of the belts to the side plates or pretty close to it, that belt is set to where it needs to be. And we also want to make sure that belt is fairly tight. So if we just push in on the belt, it's going to have a little bit of flex. But if we're flexing in and we're pushing one side of the belt and it's hidden on the bottom of the other, it's way too loose. And we have adjustment bolts to be able to tighten up that belt, number one, but also track it to the left or to the right if it's off tracking. And that's a process that's pretty difficult to do. I mean, you can play around with the tracking of that belt and get it into the middle and go out and start sweeping, and 5 minutes later it's over to the right. It's a pretty tricky process. And anytime you make adjustments to that, you got to run the belt for like a good 30 minutes to make sure that it's going to lock into where you put it. For the most part, the belt should stay where it's at unless it gets really loose or you've overloaded it or done something like that. But for the most part, it should stay right about where it's at and just maybe move a little bit. There's a bottom scraper that scrapes the material off the bottom roller. We got to make sure that that's in place and clean and properly adjusted. So the thing I see a lot of times, anytime we change a broom on a machine, we pull the broom out, we should take a little extra time to clean under the machine. They should take the broom out, they should take it outside and rinse the under machine with water as clean it out as much as possible. But if you see these bottom skirts, those all work in conjunction with our dirt shoes that come down the side. And what it's trying to do, they all work in kind of encase the underneath of that machine together. So when that main broom is flicking material up onto the conveyor, all that material is being kept inside and being put on the conveyor belt. But what I see a lot of times is you pull it out to change the broom. These rubbers are all torn off. The side plates are all bent. And the answer is, let's throw a new broom on it, let's get sweeping again. Well, that's why you're going out and you're leaving trails everywhere and you're not really doing a good job sweeping. Those are parts that personally you should probably have on the shelf ready to go, so it will minimize your downtime, because when you pull the broom out, if they are damaged, you can replace them right away. It wouldn't take you that long to replace them. You put it all back together, the machine's going to go out and do a good job sweeping. But anytime you take the broom out, you should be inspecting that stuff and making the proper repairs to the unit. Reversing the conveyor, we can reverse the conveyor on your switch in your cab. If you hit the backside of the switch, it's spring loaded. Reversing the conveyor, a lot of times why we would do that, maybe we're sweeping, we pick up a 2x4, it gets stuck in the conveyor and it stalls it out. We can at least try and reverse that and get the stuck object out. But also when we clean at the end of the day, if we reverse that conveyor a little bit when we're cleaning, it's going to loosen up that packed dirt and allow you to rinse that out as well. What we don't want to do in reverse is we don't want to hold that button and run it any more than 10 or 15 seconds. By reversing the conveyor too long, that's what can off-track it and make it go left or right on the top roller. So we don't want to do reverse too long. Just long enough to free up the material. We were talking about this a little bit with the broom coning. The sweepers, so under the machine when you take the broom out and you're looking up under the conveyor, if you look up at the left side and right side of these main broom arms, and they pivot on this pin right here, what happens a lot of times, the dirt gets built up over there over time, and then those pivot arms don't want to pivot up and down evenly. And that can cause broom coning as well, because if it's not allowing the both arms to drop all the way down. It's holding one arm off the ground. It's going to cone your broom. So again, that's why whenever we take that main broom out to change, we get in there with high pressure water and we clean that area up real well so things will operate properly and wear properly. If you ever have to tow the vehicle, so on the front hubs, there's a plate right in the middle of the hub. Got a couple of, I don't know, you probably need like a 1/2 inch wrench, I think, maybe. Take that plate off, flip it upside down, rebolt it back on. That's going to release your parking brake, okay? You've got one in each hub, the left hub and the right hub. So anytime we need to tow this machine, we'll need to release those. Thing to keep in mind is when you release those, the machine is now does not have any brakes. So if you're on a hill or anything like that, we don't want the machine to take off on you and run down the hill or get away from you. Always suggest hook up to the tow rig, then release those, and then you're ready to tow. I see it all the time. Tow companies, you call out a wrecker picks it up from the back, they tow it to our shop in Woburn. Not supposed to tow that over 20 miles an hour. I see wreckers all the time coming in. They're doing 70 down the highway. I don't care. I know they are, you know. And you could do damage to the drive motors and hubs that are probably, you know, 15 plus grand a piece. So you could do like $30,000, $40,000 worth of damage in a heartbeat by doing that. It's really made to, you know, the sweeper's on one side of town, get it back to your garage, and then find a, you know, a landau or something like that to get it to us if it needs to come to us. Jacking points, there's good jacking points on the front and the back. The water system, pretty simple. I mean, biggest thing I tell everybody if they're not aware is flush out your hydrant before you hitch up to the sweeper so you're not introducing any dirt into the sweeper. You do have the visual gauge there so you know when it's getting full. This piece on top, I always get asked, you know, what that is. That's an anti-siphon valve. It's built into the sweeper because anytime we hitch up to a municipal system, they don't want water backflowing into the system. These two ports on the tank, anytime you fill the tank up and overfill it, water will come out these two ports. And that's used and helpful for rinsing down the conveyor structure at the end of the day. If you're able to hitch up to a hydrant in your yard, you can flush water down over the conveyor structure and help clean out some of the dirt that's in there. This is just another view of those ports. You can see those if you have the hopper up in the air. You can look right down, you can see those. All your water pumping stuff is located under the hopper. Any of the green lines that you see running through the machine are your water lines, so they're easy to identify. Your water filter, keep that clean. 100 mesh filter in there. It's washable. As long as it's not broken or anything like that, you can reuse it. So just make sure you keep that clean, O-ring in good place. A lot of the newer sweepers have this option on it. If you look at the fill valve, it's a 2-position valve. In one position, the water comes out of your hydrant into the machine and fills up your water tank. If you turn the valve quarter turn, it's going to send water down to the bottom lower conveyor of the bottom roller on your conveyor system. And again, it's going to flush some of the dirt and stuff out of there. So it's a cleaning tool. Helps you clean the machine a little bit better. Just so you know, I mean, all the electrical wiring in the machine is not only color-coded, but it's also marked on the wire what it goes to. So anytime you're troubleshooting a specific function, maybe your right-hand gutter light doesn't work. If you're looking, you can look and find the, you know, if you have an electrical schematic, you know what color wire it is. And then you can look through and you'll see right on the wire, it'll say like right-hand floodlight, right-hand gutter light, or something like that. So all the wiring harnesses are marked to make it a lot easier to find a problem in a machine. On the older machines, we can hook up with a laptop computer, and it gives us a lot of troubleshooting ability with electrical components as well. Hydraulic system, biggest thing I see overlooked on sweepers is If you read the manual, they tell you that you should be replacing that hydraulic fluid, I believe, like once a year at least. So I don't see that happening too often. You know, a lot of the old adages, the fluid looks good, I'm not going to change it out. But you got to remember, the sweeper's in one of the dirtiest conditions there is. So there is a lot of dust and dirt in the air, and that dust and dirt gets into the hydraulic system as well. They do try to contain it as much as possible. There are breather filters on the tank to try and keep that material out. And the filter is a real tight micron filter, so it does a pretty good job of filtering. But they do recommend that you do, usually say every 1,000 hours of operation or once a year. So we talked a little bit about regen. There's actually 5 different levels of regen. Your first and second and sometimes your third level of regen is, again, the operating side, where you just keep operating the machine while it's doing its thing. And then when you get to level 4, that's where you need to do a parked regen. And we don't want to get to level 5. Level 5 is when we call in the John Deere distributor to plug in and do their thing. So we don't want to hit that. So the first 3 are called automatic active regen. Then we got forced regen, which is the parked regen. And then service regen is calling in the dealer. And there's different lights that come on and tells you, in the book, it'll tell you what to do. If you had this light and that light, it's going to tell you what you should be doing. Just different types of oils and greases used on the machine. It's always beneficial if you can use what they recommend, because that has been engineered into the machine and it gives you the best life and going to give you the best overall maintenance of the machine itself. There is a chart on the backside of one of the either right or left panel, I can't remember which. It's a decal, and it tells you all the different maintenance points. Tells you stuff that you should be doing daily, tells you stuff that should be done weekly, and then other hourly recommended services as well. So like 10 hours is like what we would do every day. 50 hours would be like a once a week type thing, and then so forth. Different services depending on how many hours are put on the machine. Big thing, right? The big thing with sweepers is cleaning, you know? At the end of the shift, cleaning needs to be done. If you really want to get the full service life out of your machine, you want it to go out and perform well, they need to give you time to clean it at the end of the day, okay? It's got to be, like, if we're planning on sweeping 8 hours a day, you know, 7 hours sweeping, 1 hour cleaning, or at least a half hour cleaning. I get that question. I'll get that question asked. How long should everybody need to clean at the end of the day? Well, I'll throw an hour out there, and sometimes I'm told, like, well, that seems a little excessive, seems crazy. But when I say an hour, I'm factoring in time that, you know, if you just came back and got right to cleaning and didn't talk to anybody, didn't walk in the garage, just did your job, yeah, you could probably blast that thing out in a half hour. If you've got like a fire hose, everything's going to go a lot quicker, right? If you got a garden hose, it's going to take time. So I just think you should factor in, or should be factored into your job, enough time to properly clean that sweeper at the end of each day. And then obviously when the season's over, it should get a really good thorough pulling apart, cleaned up before it's put away for the winter, if it is put away. Some facilities sweep year round, so they're not really getting a break, but I mean, you should put the thing away nice and clean and get it good and clean, so maybe sometime during the winter you can pull it out and start doing inspections and get it ready for spring. Radiator is in the back, it needs to be kept clean, because that radiator is not only it's your cooling for your engine, it's cooling for your hydraulics. More importantly, it's your AC condenser, so if you want to have a nice cold cab in the summertime, that's got to be kept clean. And the smaller cooler is your fuel cooler. And the fuel, with the high pressure systems that we have nowadays, develops a lot of heat in the fuel system, and that needs to be kept cool as well. So keep this clean. I recommend you use air to do it. If you're going to get it wet with water, don't go out and sweep right after. If it's wet with water or cleaned with water, it should be at the end of the day where it has time to dry out. And the condenser swings away so you can get in there and really blow it out good. Again, green hoses is your water, and all that is like the Synflex hose like we use for airlines on the trucks. And if any of you are familiar with that, they're on quick connects. Well, same thing with the water nozzles. They're on a quick connect. You can pull those water nozzles right off and clean them out if they don't happen to be spraying correctly or anything like that. Steering cylinders, a lot of you guys have auto grease systems on your machine. I would say 99% of them that we sell go with the auto grease system. The big thing with auto grease is you don't have to obviously put a grease gun on and grease anything, but you do need to take a look and make sure that grease is getting to different components, especially the ones that you can see. And for instance, this is looking up underneath at the back wheel. If you look up under there and you look up the top, you're going to have your steering cylinders in there. So you want to make sure that each end of the cylinder is getting grease. The turn wheel, the turntable for your rear wheel, want to make sure that that's getting grease. And you also want to make sure nothing's coming loose. You know, I've seen where the row of bolts that bolt that rear wheel onto the machine start loosening up, and nobody catches it, and eventually they snap off and break. And usually it's when you're going down the road, and all of a sudden you're sitting on the road and you're not going anywhere. So you should be looking at that periodically. If you get the engine compartment opened up, you need to look under the engine. There's a row of bolts under there as well, and just kind of take a look at them, make sure they're all in place. If it looks like anything's backing off or loosening up, bring it to somebody's attention and get it taken care of. On the newer sweepers, so we have auto grease and we say, oh, you don't have to grease, right? On the newer sweepers, they got a different, they've redesigned this rear strut numerous times, trying to give the operator the best possible ride out of the machine and to give it a smooth ride. And the new ones have like a two-piece pivot, right? They got a main pin going across, two-piece pivot. And you'll see on these machines, they got the auto greaser going to that, but there's also a grease fit in there. We do want you to hit that with a grease gun at least once a week to pump a little bit extra grease into that pivot pin, because the auto greaser just doesn't feed enough grease to it the way it's designed, and we want to see a little bit more grease going to it that'll give you better longevity on that rear strut. Wheel bearings, I mean, they should be checked periodically. I would say depending on if you're just using the machine like, you do a lot of heavy springtime sweeping, not really a lot the rest of the year, or maybe again in the fall. Every 6 months they should jack up that rear wheel, check the wheel bearings. And if they seem a little bit loose, you might be able to just tighten them up a little bit and keep on going. But definitely every 2 years they should pull those bearings apart, inspect the bearings, clean them all up, replace if necessary, and re-grease them and put them back together. So that should be done definitely, like I said, checked every 6 months, pulled apart, cleaned, replaced every 2 years. And if you're using your sweeper like 12 months a year, going crazy, that should be sooner. So again, cleanliness, this is what you see a lot of times, and it doesn't take, you guys know, it doesn't take long to get a machine looking like this. I've been out, last 2 weeks, I've been doing demos every day with sweepers, and we've been doing a whirlwind demo on a vacuum sweeper that we sell. And I go into a place and we sweep for like a half hour, 45 minutes, and it looks like we've been sweeping for 3 years. So it doesn't take long for the dirt to accumulate and start causing problems. There is oil in the front hubs that should be serviced occasionally and checked occasionally as well. There's plugs to drain it, plugs to check the oil level. Usually we check the oil level at 3 or 9 o'clock, somewhere in the middle. So basically that hub is about half full of oil and the other half is empty. Air cleaners are real easy to check every day. We got an air restrictor gauge. As we open up the hood, we can look at that real quick. We don't have to pull the air cleaner right out of the assembly every day like we used to. We could just look at the gauge and see where we're at. Also, as that gauge fills up, there is a light on the dashboard. So if that filter is plugged, you will see a light pop on the dashboard as well. Again, dual air filters, inner and outer. There's a cab filter. A lot of people don't know that, but inside your cab, you got your operator compartment. Right at the back of the operator compartment against the back of the cab is a small plastic panel that pops out, and you've got an air filter in there. You want to check that because, again, that's part of your air conditioning system, and if you keep that clean, you're going to have a better, a cooler cab and a nicer environment. So make sure that that gets checked and changed when needed. Coolant level, real easy to check. That's right on the top of the tank. You can look right at the eyesight. You want to keep that full. You want to keep that up in the sight gauge because sometimes simple things like regen won't happen because you're low on coolant or something like that. The machine will detect that, and it could affect regen operations and so forth. So make sure you always have, when you start out in the morning and it's cold, you should have coolant up in that sight gauge. Engine oil check, pretty simple. I think you guys all know that. You got the one dipstick, you fill through the same hole. Hydraulic oil, you can look right on the sight gauge and see where your oil's at. You don't want to overfill that because you need expansion in the tank. As the oil gets hotter, it's going to rise. So during the day, when the oil's real hot, you might notice that that sight gauge is full, probably even a little bit above full. But we want to leave, a little bit of gap on the top of that tank so as the oil has chance to and not come out the top of the tank and make a mess. Auto greaser, we talked about that. Big things, make sure it's full. You can look right in the sight gauge. You need to just pump that up until the grease is at the top of the reservoir. The lights will be on the LED screen. That'll tell me I have power going to it. And a lot of times when it's actually working, you're going to see up in here, you're going to see a set of paddles turning inside that reservoir. Kind of the three things as an operator will tell you that in theory that system should be working. And again, anytime you can see any bearings or places that the grease goes to, just try to do a visual on those to see if the grease is getting to where it needs to go. Usually we give you a grease bucket that connects onto that with quick connectors, little cam lock type fitting, and you can pump that right up and keep it full. Engine maintenance, engine is on the John Deere side, so usually when we sell you a machine, we give you all the John Deere manuals as well, so please refer to those, and those will talk to you about the service intervals, the type of oil to use, and so forth. So that's pretty much it. Anytime, if you got any questions, more than free to ask them now. Probably be outside around the sweeper area there anyways. If you got questions out there and want to ask anything, please do.